Hey, what is going on, everyone? And Happy New Year's for those of you who have already had that. Here on the West Coast, we're not quite there yet as of recording this video, so eventually we will get there. And maybe by the time you watch this, it's already 2022, so I want to congratulate you all anyways. But welcome back to day 2 of Avengers Tower. Now, what we're going to be talking about in today's video, we're actually not going to be doing as much in gameplay. I am going to be doing a little bit more manual playing than I did in my first video, because I think that we're at this point where if I sim this, I think that it's going to be a bit more problematic. And we're going to talk about exactly why, because I have some numbers. I've gone through the coding, I've gone through the JSON files, and I want to give thanks to Tana for helping me navigate this. And we have some numbers now with regards to the tower floors, with all the way up to level 75. We can actually see how many points are involved per floor, what the reward payouts are, these kind of things per floor, and it's quite interesting. So that's going to be in the second half of the video. The first half of the video, we're actually going to be looking over how I kind of transform my Blitz teams, and I condensed them down to probably about 16 teams instead of like 35 or whatever I had. These are viable teams that I have about 400k plus or maybe 450k plus, that kind of region. These are the teams that I'm going to be using going into day 2 of the tower when we talk about, you know, floor 30, 35 and above. So that's what we're going to be doing in the first half. So without further ado, let's get this show started. Okay, so this is my Blitz save squads that you guys may have seen if you watched day 1 of Avengers Tower yesterday when I was cycling through these. A lot of these teams are not going to be viable, though, for me going into day 2 because the powers just aren't high enough. And, you know, as you know, it's very common Blitz strategy to kind of just take 1 or 2 really strong characters and then just, you know, put them with a bunch of crappy characters to carry them, right? So here we have my, you know, my Eternals duo, and I'm carrying a bunch of minion scrubs. And then, you know, my Creed, these are not going to make it. Red Skull, the Hydra, that's ain't gonna make it either. You know, even my Supernatural, anything under 400k probably are not gonna make it. And if they're not gear tier like 13, 14, they're probably not gonna make the cut for my condensed teams for, you know, level 35 and higher in the tower. Power armor, again, not gonna make it. So the point is that you can see here in some instances, like the Ultron here, this is the Ultron carry, this is the Doom carry. You know, these happen, and I'm sure a lot of you people do that as well. I have a Surfer carry. Do I have more? I kind of have like a new Warriors carry a little bit here. So you get the point, right? So these are my Kestrel carry and so on. So I've gone to my rosters tab and I deleted everything that was there. I basically copy and pasted some of the teams that I knew was going to stay as is. You know, your Infinity Watch, your Symbiotes, these kind of things, your Black Order. But when it came to the bottom, let's start. That's how I want to start. So I have 16 teams. These are 16 teams that I think are going to be viable in terms of my tower climb. Now, some of these I may still need to run on auto, and in a lot of cases I might anyways, just out of sheer caution. And we're going to talk about why you need to be cautious about using the auto sim. I tried to kind of caution people about this in day 1, but when you're getting to about floor 30, floor 35, I really, you know, probably would say that you're probably going to want to start manualing these unless you're like Tadano Max Japan or Philosopher and have like 800k teams on every single one. But we're going to start from the bottom, and I'm going to kind of just go over my characters. And this isn't going to work for everyone. This is just like what worked for me. So if depending on what your roster looks like, this is I'm not saying go and do this. This is just like what I have right now, and it works for me. So the bottom of the pile, I have Brotherhood 2.0 with Ultron. Now, I kind of condensed this. I got rid of Pyro because I just think that I really needed to squeeze Ultron in. I think this is probably the best thing for this team. Now, I think this might be the first team that I'll use starting in day 2 because I think that I can probably beat it with this. Secondly, we have Shadowlands. I'm keeping that as is. Now, they are a war team, but they do get to go first because of White Tiger. So I think despite all of this, you know, Moon Knight still applies all the negative stats effects. He just does. There's some things he doesn't do that these characters don't do because it's not Alliance War. But I still think I might be able to weasel something out of them here. We have Magic with Uncanny X-Man, 444k. It's a generalist team, so it doesn't have war buffs or anything like that. So I think I could probably use this now to beat something, hopefully in the 30s range. We have the Heroes for Hire. They are 424k as well. We have Weapon X. This is 470 for me, but you can see it's heavily weighted on Omega Red, but I'm hoping that maybe this might be enough to get me through another floor as well. We have X Factor. Now we have X Factor Red Guardian. This is actually my original Blitz setup. The reason why I have it like this is because as far as skilletary characters go, I think Red Guardian is still one of the better ones. I actually don't have Punisher anywhere, so I'm not sure if I'm going to need to, if I have space that I can throw Punisher in somewhere. I'm not sure, because I don't really have a team any of these here. Maybe I can, instead of Elektra, I'll put Punisher in here, because I think that might be a little bit better, actually. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to think about that. Because I have a G15 Punisher, I might just slide that in here instead of Elektra. We'll see as we go through. So, moving on, we do have the Doc Ock Sinister 6 team. I was a bit on the fence about this one, because they are a war team. They have war text and things like that. But Doc Ock is obviously standalone. I think there's some value here, but there's a lot of things that they don't do, especially Electro doesn't clear positive status effects on her ult. Doc Ock is a very good standalone character. I think I may need to co-opt him even out of this team once we get to like day 3. I don't think that I'll be using this team to clear anything. I'm not sure if it'll be strong enough, because even though I have the team power back behind it, there's some pretty old characters with Rhino and Mysterio, so I'm not sure. This is what I have. I don't even know what am I calling this? Young Avengers Web Warriors with Shuri. So the Shuri is there to give me defense up on spawn, because she basically goes first more or less on a match, and that'll help everyone else survive. And then try to get through with damage. There's some Young Avengers synergy here with my Squirrel Girl and Miles. Then we have the Secret Avengers Kestrel Sinister. That's because I broke up my my Marauders, because I didn't think that they're going to function at this high in the Avengers Tower, and I moved both Sinister and Emma out, and we'll see when we get to where Emma is. You can probably have a good idea where that's going to happen. This one's a little bit of a weird Doom mixed hybrid. I broke apart quite a few teams, but these are characters that I had, you know, tier 14 above. Black Bolt, Invisible Woman, Minerva, and Ghost. I guess you could call this a semi-villains team. I don't know what you want to call this. Anyways, 686k. Hopefully I can get a team clear out of that with Doom. We have the new Warriors, Loki, and Hela. Now, this is a pretty common tactic here in Alliance War, so I'm hoping that this gets me through another team. We have the Eternals with Baron Zemo, Emma, and Surfer. Now, this is a pretty heavy-hitting Eternals team. I'll probably be using this on like a boss battle. So if there's any point where I run into the Eternals at all, then hopefully that Emma Frost is going to give me the edge there on the speed. And then hopefully Baron Zemo helps me as well. And Silver Surfer, this might be a bit overkill. I just didn't have anywhere to put him. But this will help me probably just for sure. I'm going to win the match, hopefully. We got Astonishing X-Men here at 724. We got Black Order at 743. We got Symbiotes at 790, basically 800k. And then we have Infinity Watch at 853. So these are my teams here that I condensed. Hopefully some of this might help you, or at least jive, you know, some thoughts when it comes to changing around your teams a little bit, going from, you know, the typical Blitz roster and then just kind of breaking it down to some more manageable teams that you're going to be using to climb some of these higher floors. So that's the first part of this video. Let's jump on to the second. We're going to talk really quickly about the tower itself and my climb, and then we're going to talk about the math in part 3. Okay, so originally I was thinking of sort of doing a little bit here for the floor climbing. The intention of this Day 2 video is not going to be specifically about my climb progress. However, I'm going to make that available, that video separately, because I'm going to be doing manual matches for my floor climbing. Hopefully I can get from floor 32 to 45. At least, you know, you guys got to see some of the teams that I'll be using for this climb. And actually right here is what I'm going to be starting with. And in case you guys didn't see it before, I'm at 400k on this. But that's not the purposes of this. You know, I really want to get to the math and the strategy of Avengers Tower and what you kind of are going to be expecting. So that's what we're going to be going over in the second half of the video. That's going to be the bulk of this video for the rest of it. But do watch out on my channel. If you want to kind of watch me manually climb as high as I can in Day 2, check out that. That's going to be a separate video which will be coming out after this. So yeah, let's get over to the math and the JSON files, because that's going to be the important bulk of this. Alright everyone, so in this part of the video, I want to share with you the online JSON viewer for Avengers Tower. This is the coding involving in this event, and then afterwards we're going to be talking about some spreadsheet numbers. We're going to talk about some maths in terms of the rankings, and sort of what you're going to be expected to do, and also share with you the amount of resources that you get by climbing the tower, and how different it looks. But first of all, we're looking here at the JSON. I want to thank Tana for like helping me understand how to do this, and also sharing this with me. So in case you guys are unfamiliar with the JSON, it's essentially the coding. You're deep diving into the coding and what it says in there. So right off the bat, what's some interesting things is that I want to share with you that there are what they call different stat sets, and this ranges from 0 to 17. Now what's interesting is if you expand upon this, it'll tell you here, and you can see this, it says level 70, easy, red stars 2. So as you climb basically the tower, you know that the enemies get stronger, but when you actually click on them, what's interesting is you get stat modifiers as you go higher. It says right here, stats mod. Now, you know, some of these other things really aren't that important, but when you click on like 5, this is like tier 5 essentially, and you click on this, that you can start to see some of this stuff. Maybe it hasn't happened yet, but you can see it actually, sorry, down below here, you can see this. So stats mod, because it expands, my bad, sorry. So you have to click on the stats mod and expand that. So right here, this is like whatever, it's set number 5 for the stats. This is like the level 75 enemies that you're fighting in the tower. But you can see that the stats have been modified. Armor 115, focus 115, resistance 115, and so on. And this means that they've had a 15% bump over their base stats. Now, whether or not this is reflected in the power that you see in the matchups, I'm not sure. This could be an additional modifier on top of what you're seeing in the game. So, for example, you guys may have seen that me, and maybe you as well, you know, have lost some sim matches because you thought that you should have won it, but you didn't. I remember in the very beginning, I had a Kree matchup that was like 100 I was like 240 versus a 180k team, and I honestly thought that I should have been able to beat that. I think if I manually did it, I probably would have been able to beat it, but what I don't know is that some of these had, you know, stat modifiers on it. So as you climb, it gets worse and worse. Now, it doesn't say exactly, specifically which floor it's matched up to. It just says, if you go look at number 10, it says these are level 80 hard mode enemies. They have 5 red stars. They're level 80, gear tier 15, and ISO matrix quality 8. Now, I think this means blue 3, because if you count 5 is green 5, and I think 8 is blue 3 in this case. So if you expand on the stats mod, well, now you see it's 125, so you're getting about 25% of an increase of base stats. Now, this goes all the way up to 17, which I'm assuming is like floor 75, but I'm not entirely sure on this one. It says level 90, very hard. There are 6 red, level 90, gear tier 17, which does not exist, ISO matrix 10, which is blue ISO 5, interestingly, which we don't have, and the stats modifier are 125. So that's a 25% base increase on the stats on these characters. And I think, you know, if you look at 16, I think it's 125. So the point is that we get anywhere from, what's the first ones? They're like 100, anywhere from a 10% stat increase to a 25% stat increase on the character. So that's really important. The other thing is I've been able to kind of math out and table a lot of our rewards, because you can see here the floors. You get the floors, and it tells you exactly what the stat sets are. So I could have just gone back and checked here what I showed you earlier and, you know, compare what the actual stats per floor is. I'm not going to bother to do that, but I've kind of shared with you that they are indeed harder. Now, whether or not that's reflected in the power, I'm unsure about that one exactly. But it is harder than just like standard enemies that would be like that, right? So you can see here that it's, if you click on it, it says points awarded 800. So that's like the milestone points. Tower gold 5,000. That's your reward. Now this is, it says 35, but it's actually floor 36. We're actually one behind here, at least on the data set. So if you want to get like the rewards for floor 50, oops, I keep expanding the wrong ones. You go to 49, and so 49 is actually floor 50. You can see that the enemies are the stat set level 85 medium, and you get 1,000 points over here and 20,000 gold. So now this goes up all the way, you know, up to 74, which is the last one. I know my head's blocking in the way, but if you click on this here, you can see it up on the right-hand side. So believe me that this is it. I can't, oops, I don't want to screw up my zooming, and it's because my head's blocking the way. But at the very bottom, I'm clicking below down here, 74, and so this is over here. So how many points do you get for clearing the final level, level 75? Well, you get 145,100 points, and you get tower teal fragments, or tower orb fragments. That's what they're actually, the tower fragments that we showed off earlier in day 1. So for example, if you click on 50, which is floor 51 here, you get 1,000 points and 300 tower teal fragments. So you can do this for each of the floors. You might notice it changes a little bit on the right hand side over here, and it tells you the stat set as well. So 3,500, 4,000, 4,500, and so on. The tower teal fragments actually don't raise up very quickly until you go every like 5 to 8 levels or so, and it changes a little bit. So now that we've seen some of this, I'm not going to really go over the stat sets on each of the floors, because that's not the intention of this part. But we're going to open up my Marvel Strike Force spreadsheet here for Avengers Tower version 1, December 30th to January 6th, and I've tabled all of this. So I've kind of gone through the first 50 floors. This is this initial bracket here, and you get points and gold. I tallied this all up, and what do you get? Well, by floor 50, you should have 31,000 milestone points, which is the end of the existing milestone. This is essentially the milestone and chill section. Now, you also get 300,000 gold by the end of it, which isn't a lot, actually. You know, as far as a fresh Blitz goes, you know, 750k, I think it's awfully close to this, isn't it? I don't know the exact number, but it's not super significant. Now, obviously, you do get the stuff that are in the milestones, which is like, well, what was that again? Like 3 teal raid orbs and like 4 gold orbs and things like that. So you get all that stuff on top of this, but you know, it's nothing crazy. Now, ignore this stuff on the right-hand side for now, because we're going to talk about this after we get through this. Now, this is floor 51 through 60, so you can see the points and how they climb. They get higher and higher, and then you get the tower orb fragments, because it changes from gold, from flat gold, to tower orb fragments. And so by the end of floor 60, if you happen to get there, you get 28,250 points and about 3,300 tower orb fragments, which is this in terms of the amount of tower orbs. Now, going through all the other levels, you're getting this as well, 61 to 65. I kind of broke it up because they're quite hard, and I wanted to break it up per 5 levels at this point, so 61 to 65, 66 to 70, and 71 to 75 with the respective numbers, the milestone points, or the points in general, and the tower orb fragments. Now, at the very bottom, you get the grand total. If you climb all the way from 1 to 75, hypothetically. Now, I don't think many people are going to do this. I think this is, we're talking like Tadano Mac, Philosopher, these kind of like top 20, maybe top 100 kind of people. This is your grand total for your points and what you're going to get. Now, if you do this just one time, like just one climb, 1 to 75, and you know, you're not failing, you're not getting pushed back down. This is how many points that you're going to get. And we're going to talk about why this is important when it comes to failing and dropping down. So that's about 727,000, and you get about 6.3 tower orbs, you know, for that initial climb going the way through. One thing that we don't know is whether or not the rewards from 51 and above for the tower orb fragments are repeatable. I don't know if this is a one-time reward or not, and this is kind of important in terms of, you know, the strategy, and that's what I want to talk about here. So I have a couple of scenarios, and this might be a bit lofty, so this is probably lofty, but anyways, we're going to roll with it. This is not 100%, you know, mathematically accurate in a lot of senses, but it kind of gives you some scenarios and some strategies to think about when you get there. Now, I put here that all of these are assuming that you can get to floor 50 by the end of day 2, which is probably not you. And it might not be me either. I think that, you know, it's not going to happen. But, you know, that being said, you know, I still want to talk about this anyways. I probably should have changed it to day 3. It doesn't really matter too much, because whether or not it's floor 50 by the end of day 2 or day 3, the strategies are still pretty much the same. So in this case, scenario 1 is, you know, we're assuming that we have 5 days left for points. You know, 5 24-hour periods to start farming points post 50. Now, in this scenario, you know, I'm thinking if you repeat floors 51 to 60 twice a day. Again, this could be quite lofty, because that means you need to have 20 really good teams in order to clear from 51 to 60 twice, but just let's roll with it anyways, please. So that if we did that for 5 days, that would be 10 runs of 51 to 60, right? 51 to 60, dropping down, 51 to 60, that's, you know, in a 24-hour period. And then this is how much points you'd end up farming. So I basically just took this subtotal here, which is the 51 to 60 points. I multiplied this by 2 and then by 5, so that's 10. And then I added this. So it's this times 10 plus 31,000. You get this value here. So that's how many points, like by the end of the week, how much you would get if you did it with this strategy. Now, scenario 2, this is, you know, the same thing. All these are 5 days left for points. So if you repeated, say, floors 51 to 65 once a day, but you did this for every day. Went to 65, you failed, and then you went back up to 65 again, you did this 5 times. You would get a total of 432,000 points. Now, this is interesting, right? Because obviously you're going up an extra 5 floors, but you're only doing it once per day, and you can see how the points scale on the left-hand side here, so it's quite interesting. Now, scenario 3. This is with the assumption that you just climbed to level 70 in 5 days. Just one time. Go all the way down here, all the way down here, and all the way down here, and you get to 70. And, well, what do you get? Well, your points total is 270,000. This is less. This is less. Red flag. This is less points than it is for scenario 1 and scenario 2. So you're getting less points climbing than you are if you grind. So this Avengers Tower is all about the grind and not about the climb. And that's kind of some of the points here that I want to make, except for one instance. Except for one instance, and that's scenario 4. If you climb straight to 75 in the 7 days, then you're going to get this many points. Now, I'm going to green this one, because that's good, I guess. If you can somehow Tadano Mac it up to level 75 in the tower, in the full time, you're getting 727,000 points. Now, that is more than all these other scenarios. So, in this instance, it is a climb and not a grind. But in every other instance, if you cannot get to 75, it's a grind. You're basically grinding the previous floors, like 51 to 60, or whatever you can do, repeatedly for 5 days. And that's how you're going to score the higher ranking for Avengers Tower. Is that good? I don't think so, because in terms of if you have to manual, especially the floors above 50, but you know, realistically you should be manualing above 35. I think that this is going to be a lot of time, a lot of screen time that we don't want to do. And for those of you who are saying that this is a better version of Blitz, I wouldn't be so sure. Because if this happens on a more regular basis, I think you're using a lot of time to do this. So keep that in mind. I'm cautioning people now to take this with a grain of salt, and I'll be providing this feedback to the devs as well when they get back from their holidays, but I just wanted to share this with you here. So Scenario 1 and Scenario 2 really showcases that it's all about the floor grinding and not the climbing, unless you're somehow a super Kraken and you can get straight to 75 because you're going to have more points than any of these other scenarios. So that's the end of this video. I hope that all of this was informative. If it was, please let me know. Smash the like button. You know, consider subscribing to my channel. You know, all that. Let me know what you think about Avengers Tower now that you've kind of heard some of this. Hopefully you watched this to the end of the video. And of course, until next time, stay safe and healthy. And I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.